Hi there, this is Dr. Embuddy with Project 7. This one's kind of interesting because it's related to something going on in this current year, which is the census. And every 10 years, required by the Constitution, we do a count of the population. And our House of Representatives, which has a fixed number of members, 435, also, the Constitution says that the representation must be proportional to the population. So the question is, how do they do that? And that's what this project is about. Is we're going to take input as the census, and the output will be how the seats in the House of Representatives are apportioned to the different states. So with that, let's take a look. So there are sort of under the background, there's 435 members, and 2020 is a census year. Now every state gets one seat. So the question is, what do you do with the other 385? And for our purposes, from an algorithmic standpoint, is we're going to have a priority list. And what we and that's what this project is all about, creating that priority list. And once we have that priority list, it's pretty easy to do the assignment of seats to states. Is you just grab the first one on the list, and that's the next seat. So if California is first in the list, then they get a new seat, and then Texas is next, and they get a seat, and so on. You just work your way down that list. So the interesting part of this is creating that priority list. We have two sets of data, and they're comma separated value files. We have the data from the last census, 2010, and then the Census Bureau also does an estimate of the population. So we'll use last year's estimate. And we also have a small file for testing the functions. Now both files actually are a little different, but fortunately for our purposes, the two pieces of data that we need, which is the state and the population, occur at the same index. So that works out fine. One thing to watch out for is that for the strings, they come with quotation marks, so we have to remove those. And population will be an int. The estimate file has two entities that are U.S. citizens but don't get representatives in the House of Representatives. That's District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. So what do we have for functions? Well, we've got an open file function. That's our old friend. We've had that before. We have this thing called the multipliers, and that's a simple decreasing geometric ratio here, and from 2 to 60. So you just create this list of 59 values, and the result is this list of multipliers that gets then sent to this next function, where you take one state, its population, and the list of multipliers, and you make a new list of tuples where you have every tuple. Suppose we're coming in with California and its population, I don't know, let's guess 10 million or whatever. Then we're going to make tuples that all the tuples out of one call to this function will all have the same state name, and then they'll have the priority values. And those priority values come from taking the population that we have, the one population, and multiplying it by each element of the multipliers. And then each time you do the multiplication, you then have a priority value, create a tuple, and that goes on to the list. And we have to sort it in terms of decreasing values. And then this is the function that does all the work. One thing that I want to point out here is that what I call the multipliers here, this list of multipliers that's going in here, that's the same thing as this. This says modifiers. It really is the list of multipliers. So those two lists are the same, okay? And they both come out of the function that they come out of this that list there and that list there and this list here are all the same list. All right, so what we're going to return in this one is is the states. How many representatives are there? So Michigan has 20 representatives or whatever it is. So when we create this, it will have 50 because there's 50 states. It will be initialized to have one representative because every state gets at least one. And then we have this priority list. That priority list is, if we go back here, that's this. That's what this is all about, creating that priority list. And there'll be 385 of those, and it's sorted by the priorities. All right, so it's these tuples with priority and state, decreasing order. And then all we do in the main is we're going to go through that, and just grab the states off of there. So let's take a look at some of these. If I take a look at this multiplier list that comes out of the calc multipliers, and I just print that, you're going to do something else with it, but I'm just going to print it. We see that we get a bunch of values here. And this is a list. You can see there's the starting square bracket and there's the ending square bracket there. You get this geometrically decreasing set of values: 0.7, 0.4, 0.2, 0.22, 0.18, 0.15, and so on. That is the list of multipliers. And then once we have that, then we can go into the file and get the populations, but we got to open the file first. And I've got this file hard-coded to do our test file. So let's take a let's take a close look at that. So I have a small file for testing the functions, and it's got a it's got a header, and then it has California and Texas and Puerto Rico. Remember, Puerto Rico doesn't get any seats in the House of Representatives, so we skip that. Mississippi, Kansas, Alaska, DC, and again we skip that because they don't get any seats in the House of Representatives either. So that's what that's what the file looks like. That's our short one, and then I take my this read files function, read file and make priorities. That's this function here, and note that it returns two things: a list of lists and a list of tuples. All right, so let's take a look. Let's start by looking at the states list, and you can see each state initially gets, like Alaska, they get one representative. Everybody gets one representative, and then we can also look at the priorities list. So this one has a length of 385, and the way we assign seats now is we just go through this list. Notice there's a list. Okay, there's the square bracket, and then there's a tuple, and it has a value and a state. So this means that the 51st seat is given to California. And so what I do is I take I'm going to take California, all right, this value, Let's try that again. Oops, there we go. So I'm going to take California, right, and then that goes here. That's a particular state. And then my list of states, probably I should call it list of states, that's what goes here. And what we do then is what the function does is the function now goes through the states list and it looks until it finds California, and then it adds 1 to that. So that would be a 2. And then now we've taken care of this one. Then we'll go, and the next one is Texas. So now Texas then becomes the argument of the state, and we go into our list and we search through until I find Texas, and now that becomes the 2. We just add 1 onto it. And then the next one is California. Okay, so now we add another 1 onto there. That becomes 3. And we just work our way through the list, keep calling this add to state function to increase the number of representatives in that state. And then when we're done, we print that out. Hopefully that gives you enough to start with. Good luck.